And that gets to the final point I want to bring up, which is the remedy here. They're asking that the death penalty be struck because these methods are unconstitutional, but that's not how it works. If you show that one method is unconstitutional, part of the reason you have to present a viable, readily implemented alternative is so that the state can then use that method for the execution. You don't get to, at the beginning, short circuit the whole thing and say death is off the table because the current method is unconstitutional. As I said before, the method could change. And so if they came in and they had evidence and they could show that there was another method that's not lethal injection, that's not firing squad, that severely or significantly reduces the pain, and it's readily implemented, the answer isn't to strike it, the death penalty completely. It's to say, okay, you can move forward with the trial. We can see if he's sentenced to death, but you can't use those two methods to do it. I
want to bring in Michael Lasher. He is a death penalty.
So, interesting points of view. Sandra Preston from the chat, I wanted to just read this because they thought the same on Richard Allen. Here is my huge concern. Who are you people to convict someone? This is the United States of America, and you are innocent until proven guilty. Sandra, you're 100% right. However, you're right. This is the United States of America, and people are allowed to give their opinion without the addendum, he's innocent until proven guilty. If that's their opinion, that's fine. No one is getting hurt by their opinion. So you're 100% right, though. People in our system are innocent to proven guilty. Again, we all have the right to voice our opinions. Michelle from the chat, DM, who's Dylan Mortensen, and the eyebrows, that's BS. She never mentioned eyes. You see them if you could see eyebrows, unless he was leaving the scene of a mass murder with his eyes closed. Michelle, she did mention bushy eyebrows. And one of the things was, we all remember the COVID masks. He had a mask up covering his nose. So that covered much of his face. So I had raised this question many times. Can you identify someone when they have a mask on? There are other identifiers in your face. For example, their eyes, like you mentioned, and the eyebrows and the forehead, for example. Can you make a proper identification? I don't know. Eyewitness identification is always under question anyway, even when someone gets to see the person's whole face. In this instance, she saw the whole person, except his face was covered with what was described as a COVID mask. And she described he was tall and thin with like an athletic type build with bushy eyebrows. That was pretty much the description she gave. So will she be useful as a witness? And I don't want to get too deep into the case. What we really are talking about is the argument against the death penalty here. And to tell you the truth, I somewhat think that they put the horse before the cart rather than vice versa, because I don't think this was the defense's, I don't think this was their fight in a way, because let's take the case. And then if he gets found guilty, isn't that the time to argue whether the death penalty is appropriate and to try to argue these things? But to argue it right now, to me, seems like a waste of time and money. Mike.
Bill, you're right. The best time to argue is if he is found guilty and if the jury imposes the death penalty, votes for the death penalty, and the judge imposes it. So we have a couple of steps. Putting the cart before the horse, it means that this issue, the issue of the constitutionality of the death penalty and the method by which it may be imposed, it's not ripe yet. It's not ready for judicial review by the judge. That's what the prosecutor is saying. We'll discuss this maybe, later on, perhaps not even until decades from now. You don't do it now. The discretion to charge somebody with capital murder one, to make it a death penalty case, rests solely with the district attorney, and that is the law of the land in every state that has a death penalty. And it is not up to, I've never seen this before, where a defense attorney could assert that the death penalty, that the prosecution could not try this case as a death penalty case because the death penalty was unconstitutional. At this point, It's not up for debate. It's not ripe. It will become ripe later on after certain conditions precedent have been met. He's convicted. The jury decides not to impose life behind bars. The jury decides to vote for a capital punishment, the death penalty, and then it is imposed by the judge. Those three things have to happen before this discussion about the constitutionality of Idaho's death penalty occurs. So you're right. Putting the cart way before the horse, way before the horse.
Although, Mike, one argument for why the defense could be allowed to do this is because there has to be a death penalty jury if, in fact, they are going for the death penalty, which they have indicated, yes, they are.
Mm-hmm.
So the jury has to be jurors who are okay with the death penalty, who are pro-death penalty.
Right.
So anyone who is against the death penalty will not be chosen for this jury. So I think that needs to be pointed out. Anders Gustafsson, I think the prosecution has a good case. Idaho, especially compared with Delphi, Kohberger's alibi is that he was stargazing in the area where the girl's house was situated. Dana Hodgian, the judge is not going to agree with the defense on the death penalty. No, he's not. And that he sort of made that pretty damn clear.